my name is, and just to recap, my name is Amanda Ridding. I consider myself to be a self-educated student at law. I do not give out legal advice. Anything that I share is not to be construed as legal advice. Please verify it yourself or seek out a legal professional to verify the information that I'm giving you. We went off on a small conversation just to recap my thought process on my contract law, because I'm not going to lie, I wasn't quite as prepared as I had intended to be for the matter. And my recent obsession, the Constitution Act of 1867, is I kind of went off on that so we're recapping it now. So I was just explaining that the Constitution, under the provisions set out of the Constitution Act of 1867, the authority of all law of Canada, regardless of geographical jurisdiction, is federal. I'm going to repeat that. From what I've been able to ascertain from my studies, the authority of all law of Canada, regardless of geographical jurisdiction, is federal. Now, how is this established? Well, one of the first questions that was asked of me while we were having this conversation was, do we even have a valid British North American Act? Now, my answer to that was, best as I can tell, yes, the Constitution Act of 1867 is in fact valid. When you start to delve into the Constitution Act of 1867, one of the first things people jump on is the fact that the original royal assent was repealed. But the word repeal is not the same as the word revoked in law. Repealed typically means that something is rolled back to be replaced by something else. Now, with that concept in mind, when the original royal assent of Queen Victoria was repealed, the question is, was it replaced? And the answer is, best as I can tell, yes, because as you go through the end notes and the amendment notes of the Constitution throughout its history, because they're all there to be viewed, anytime a change is to be made in a contract, it has to be agreed upon by all the parties, and it has to have an official amendment. Now, recapping that idea with contract law, if you have an agreement of purchase and sale, and the buyer has agreed to buy the house from the seller for $500,000, but there's a condition that they get to do a home inspection. And during the home inspection, they find out that the deck is going to fall off the house. It's imminent. It's going to fall off the house. Then the buyer can return to the seller and say, I know I told you I'd give you $500,000 for the house, but because this deck is going to fall off the house any day now, I'm going to revise my offer and offer you $490,000. I'm going to take $10,000 off the agreement of purchase and sale. The seller now has a choice. The seller can either accept the revised price, in which case an amendment needs to be done. And if everyone is in agreement, everybody needs to sign the amendment. That's the only way to change the contract. Or the seller can say, nope, go fly a kite, at which point you get the mutual release and the deal dies. So with the Constitution, there we have had amendments to the Constitution over the years, and some of those amendments are considered to be pretty major. When you have a major amendment happening to the Constitution, the royal assent gets repealed because a new proclamation will be issued, because that proclamation is like a signature. It's like a seal to seal the changes that are occurring, in this case of the Constitution, which technically speaking is a form of contract. So the assent gets repealed and a new proclamation is made, and under the new proclamation, the terms and conditions of the Constitution, including its new amendments, end up getting enacted. So when you understand that, and there was something I was going to go with this, which might answer your question, because I see your hand up, but give me 1 second. So the so the Constitution, as I said, the Constitution act, like the agreement of purchase and sale, it is a contract, and we can tell it's a contract through the preamble. The preamble starts out, whereas the provinces of Canada. Now, keep in mind, this was written in 1867. The provinces of Canada back in 1867 referred to Upper Canada and Lower Canada. Upper Canada reflected Ontario, and Lower Canada reflected what we now know as Quebec. So they don't, to reduce redundancy in law, they don't say the province of Upper Canada and the province of Lower Canada. What they do is they combine the like terms and they pluralize it. So instead, they take out the upper, they take out the lower, and they go the provinces of Canada, and they get rid of all that redundancy. So the preamble says, whereas provinces of Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. So we have 4 provinces. So there's 4 subjects who want something. What do those 4 subjects want? Well, they expressed a desire. So we know they definitely want something now because they expressed a desire. What did they express a desire for? They expressed a desire to be federally united into one dominion. Federally united, folks, establishes all legal authority of Canada into federal. And how do I know it's all of Canada, all legal authority? Because they're federally united into one dominion, one capital O, dominion, capital D. So federally united into one dominion. And if you pick up a dictionary and you take a look at a dictionary to see what what one of the terms of dominion means, it means domain. We are under one umbrella, one domain, federally united. So that establishes the legal authority of all law in Canada into federal. Okay, it is only limited by geographical territory. Now, they're federally united into one dominion, but we're still only talking about 4 subjects who want something. And what do they want? They want to be federally united into one dominion under the crown. Bingo, there's your 5th subject of the contract. The provinces want the crown to be over them. They want to be federally united with the crown over them. So they're making an agreement with the crown. Back in 1867, the crown was Victoria. Now I'm gonna stop there for a second and say, because one of the questions that I had was, well, how is it Victoria back in 1867 and Elizabeth today? Well, because the agreement is under the crown. So whoever wears the crown is the conscience for that entity, the crown. And the provinces, that's an entity. Ontario is an entity. It's not a conscience. Quebec is an entity. It's not a conscience. So we have basically all these entities. A lot of people will call them corporations, and technically speaking, yeah, they're all corporations. All countries are corporations, but I'm not going to go down that road because they're styled with the word country. If you incorporate a business, one of the things you have to decide when you incorporate a business is, you're going to call yourself limited or you're going to call yourself incorporated. You choose what you want to be styled. To be styled is what you want to be called. So if you want to be styled as a limited company, you will call yourself Acme Limited. If you want to be styled as an incorporated company, you will be called Acme Incorporated. And if you want to be styled as a country, then you would be calling yourself a nation of whatever country. It's just a styling. But yeah, they're all corporations, so get over it. Now that you understand styling, we are the nation of Canada, federally united into one dominion under the crown. And it's expressed in the preamble, and then under Rule 3 of the under the Constitution Act of 1867, that is where it's bound. Under Rule 3, we are bound into one dominion, federally united under the crown. Okay, so bingo, everything is under the crown. And if everything is under the crown, and the crown represents federal legal authority, then the legal authority of all law of Canada is federal. And the provinces, that federal legal authority, it's not divided, it's not separated, it's extended. And if it's extended, it's still federal, defined only by geographical jurisdiction. Pretty cool. Now, how do we know this? Government of Canada, to me, is a really, you know, they name things often to represent what it isn't. The government, to call the Parliament of Canada the Government of Canada, is to give the illusion that they're the only ones that have federal legal authority. And I'm sorry, it's an illusion. As best as I've been able to determine through my studies of the Constitution Act of 1867, and I'm going to just go turn my phone off, bear with me. Going through the, sorry about that. So going through that understanding, let's take a look first at the Legislative House for the Parliament of Canada.
Hey, Amanda.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just in case you're not seeing my messages in the chat here, we're down to 25 minutes. So I just thought, in case you weren't noticing the time.
Oh, I'm cutting to the chase. Trust me.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Just wanted to make sure you. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. So I'm just going to keep rolling with it because I'm probably going to be done about 10. So Legislative House, okay, it is actually made up of 3 entities. At the top is the Crown, and the Governor General acts in the name of her Queen, of Her Majesty the Queen. So the Governor General, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, sits at the top of the Parliament of Canada. Underneath, directly underneath the Governor General, or the Crown, is the Senate. And the Senate is considered to be the sober second thought for the House. Technically, if the House is making decisions that violate people's rights, the Senate is supposed to be the ones that go, no. Okay. Then below the Senate is the House, excuse me, is the House of Commons. Thank you. It's the House of Commons. The House of Commons, people, are the representatives of the public. They're the people we elect. And it is through the electoral process that the House of Commons is created. Without the House of Commons, there is no Parliament of Canada. Without the House of Commons, there's no Parliament of Canada. And the people are the ones that create the House of Commons, and we create the House through the electoral process. Now, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious here, but you need to understand that the legal perspective on this one is that they create the House of Commons, and they create the House of Commons in their image. In other words, they're sending people just like themselves to the House of Commons to represent them. That creates an obligation of fiduciary duty to the people that are being represented by the representatives. Just for fun, okay, because Canada recognizes the supremacy of God, take a look for a moment. What does God do? God creates. And what does God create? God creates man in his image, and God is sovereign. Man creates the House of Commons to represent them. Man creates the House of Commons in his image. Man is sovereign over the House of Commons. And every time those people on that hill in Ottawa vote with the party in conflict with the people they're supposed to be representing, they're breaching their fiduciary duty to the people they represent. And until Canadians understand this and educate their politicians on this, we haven't got a hope. The time for party politics has got to end, because it's not the party's interest that the representatives are supposed to be putting forth first. It is because they have an obligation, a fiduciary responsibility, first and foremost, to the people they represent. Now, I've talked about the Parliament of Canada. How about the Legislative Assembly of the provinces? The Legislative Assembly of the provinces at the top, okay, and I'm going to speak from the perspective of Ontario because that's where my focus is. At the top, you have the Lieutenant Governor. The Lieutenant Governor represents the Crown, and the Lieutenant Governor acts in the name of Her Majesty the Queen. And because the Lieutenant Governor represents the Crown, what legal authority do you think that provincial legislature is under? Federal, because it's still the Crown. It's only extended. And if you don't believe me, the Lieutenant Governor starts every session of the Legislative Assembly under, guess what? The Great Seal of Canada. The Great Seal of Canada. It's all in the Constitution Act, folks. I think that one, I can't remember what the rule numbers are off the top of my head. So so underneath the Lieutenant Governor, you then have the House of the Legislative Assembly. They don't call it that. But do you know what? It is called a house. It's in the Constitution Act. And what is it the house of? It's the House of the Legislative Assembly. And who creates that house? The people. That's right. The people. And how do they create the house? Through the electoral process. And what do they create the house in? They create the house in their image. They're sending people like ourselves to the parliament to represent our interests. And every time they vote in favor of the party in conflict with the people that they're supposed to be representing, they're breaching their fiduciary duty to the people they're representing. And to party politics, folks, and to party politics. So now we have established that everybody, every member of provincial parliament is operating under the Crown, under the Great Seal of Canada, and its legal authority is federal and limited by the geographical territory of the province. Now, let's take a look. Municipal. Where does the municipal get its authority from? Oh, that's right. It gets its authority from the Legislative Assembly of the province. They create the Municipal Act. Now they're telling you that the Municipal Act is municipal. Okay, but if it is municipal, then why are we all in the Ontario Court of Justice under the Provincial Offences Act? I thought it was municipal. Why aren't we in the Ontario Court of Justice under the Municipal Act? Because the authority comes from the Provincial Municipal Act, and they get their authority from the federal, and it's never been separated, which means the Municipal Act, under the authority of the Provincial Legislative Assembly under the Crown, is still federal jurisdiction. And do you want to know why I keep finding so many references of mayors and everything else in the Criminal Code of Canada under Part 4? It's because everything is federal. Everything is federal, which means the construction of law of Canada includes municipal, includes provincial, which means they don't, and this is why they don't want us to understand what jurisdiction means. And this is why they don't teach us the Constitution Act of 1867 in school. And this is why they mislabel the Parliament of Canada as the Government of Canada, because Ontario is also the Government of Canada, and Manitoba is also the Government of Canada, because they're all under the Crown. It's all federal. We're all federally united into one dominion under the Crown. It's the Constitution Act. Mic drop. I think I covered it. Your hand is up. Sherry, did you have a question?
I absolutely do. Okay, so, well, I have one simple question. One. What dictionary do you recommend for the simple one?
Because I'm usually working on my computer, I don't physically have a dictionary beside me, so I typically go into Merriam-Webster or I go into Cambridge.
Okay.
From time to time, I'll also use Black's Law Dictionary.
Okay.
I don't use the Google Dictionary.
No.
So when you put in the word and you automatically get the definition pop up, I go, I'll look at it, and then I'll still look at Merriam, and I'll still look at Cambridge, or I'll still look at Black's, whatever else comes up.
Okay, and here's the more complicated question, and that is, what the hell's going on with all these bills they're trying to pass, right? Change the all of this stuff that you just talked about, the legislative process. Bill S-233 and Bill S-223, which are basically worded exactly the same, that will take away the procedure of creating the sober
second thought. So under the Constitution Act of 1867, bills can be created in the Senate. Okay, they can.
But they're trying to bypass them with these bills.
So, and keep in mind, that particular, the Bill C, whatever, the one that they created in the Senate to do the universal basic income, they're trying to give you something. Okay, if they're trying to take something from you, it's called the Bill of Appropriation, and that must generate in the House of Commons. They can't generate a Bill of Appropriation in the Senate.
Well, they're doing a bunch of bills that are absolutely bypassing.
I get it.
Process.
I get it. So you also need to understand, and I mentioned earlier, I think it's Mackenzie King back in 1940 committed treason, because the guy who had been sitting as the clerk of the Privy Council for 20 years retired, and then the Governor General not too long after that passed away, and so the people who knew how things were supposed to operate were suddenly gone, and Mackenzie King very slyly slipped through an order in council to change the powers, if you will, of the Governor General. So now the Governor General has his feet in both camps instead of solely in the camp of the Queen. And now they can technically, the House of Commons can technically order the Governor General to do stuff. Now, it was done under the premise that it was wartime and it needed to be done, but it was never repealed, which means, and so the system stemming from that is running as a de facto system. That's not my research, by the way, folks. There's a guy who reached out to me this week, who's been studying the Constitution a hell of a lot longer than I have, and he's pretty damn clever. And he has a blog. His name, I can give you his name. It's well, maybe I shouldn't give you his name. His blog is called oh, I have to look at it. It's on my other computer. Give me 1 second.
So anybody who's interested in looking at Bill S-223 and Bill S-233 and also Bill C-11, Bill C-11 actually bypasses the trespass law.
Yeah, it does. But here's the thing. Last I checked, it was still in the Senate. I'm trying to determine if the Senate has shut down for the season, because the Senate usually starts up about a month after the Parliament. And then it typically shuts down a month or two after the Parliament shuts down. Because any bill that shuts down, the way I understand it, any bill that shuts down without passing dies. So if C-11 doesn't pass the Senate before the Senate shuts down, then my understanding is that's it, it dies. And it has to start again from the beginning. So I have sort of been following that, but I haven't been following that as closely as other things, because honestly, I'm more in the trenches than I am on the grand scheme of things at this point. Now, give me a second. I'm just going to find that.
Yeah, that's why Bill C-11 the first time didn't go through. It got shut down and it was stuck in Senate, and then Senate shut down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if the Senate has shut down for this year, then it's done again. It's over. I just don't know if it is shut down, because I did look yeah, it's been a while since I've actually taken a look. So I'm just taking a look for that thing. But this guy is the one. He actually it was really hard for him, but he did he did manage to find the order in council that was issued by William King. But what that order in council establishes essentially is a de facto system. And the de facto system, this is how they do things. Okay, so it's considered de facto, it's the way things happen, but here's the thing. Okay, I now know that it's de facto, and with the Canadian Bill of Rights, I'm going to hold them to the Supreme Law of Canada, which is the Constitution Act of 1867. Because at the end of the day, I don't give a rat's ass if it's de facto or not. The reality is that that no statute, no regulation, no common case law, no order in council can amend the Constitution Act of 1867. And if the Constitution Act of 1867 hasn't been amended, then to this day, you can still hold a de facto system to account, because just because it's de facto doesn't mean it's right. Here's the law, follow the law, and stick it to you. Oh, and Canadian Bill of Rights. So now very quickly, now that I'm thinking that, because I got a couple of minutes left, Beth, I'm going to just take this. I want everyone to picture an apple tree in their mind. One of the terms in law that you hear a lot, and this is why I'm using an apple tree, is does it bear fruit? So right now, when you take a look at the Reopening of Ontario Act, or the Highway Traffic Act, or the Emergencies Act, or any statute, okay, those statutes on that apple tree represent branches. And they have us all sitting around, jumping around in these branches, looking at the branches. Now, not all statutes, but many of these statutes, they have regulations under them. If you go to the Courts of Justice Act, for instance, under the Courts of Justice Act, so everything under the Courts of Justice Act must adhere to the Courts of Justice Act, but under the Courts of Justice Act, you have a regulation for small claims court, and you have a regulation, I believe, for the Ontario Court of Justice, and you have several other regulations, and those regulations are specific to those subjects, the small claims court, for instance. And if you want to know what the rules of the small claims court are, you got to go to this regulation that governs the small claims court. And the small claims court is still bound to the Courts of Justice Act. So those regulations, what part of the tree do those regulations represent? They represent the leaves. Okay. And then if you have a case law to support the statute and or the regulation, that case law represents the apple. It's the fruit. Okay. So when the law is applied properly, it will bear fruit, and your fruit is the case law or the apple. So what represents, I'm going to ask you guys, what represents, what based on that analogy, what part of the tree is the Constitution Act of 1867? Unmute yourself. I want to hear it.
The trunk.
Nope.
Oh, the root.
The roots.
Root, yeah.
What part of the tree does the Canadian Bill of Rights represent?
The trunk.
Bingo. Because without the roots and without the trunk, you don't have the branches, the leaves, and the fruit. So while we're all sitting here focused on fruit and fruit and branches and leaves, everybody is distracted and not paying attention to the trunk and the roots. Now, here's the thing. We actually have two trunks in Canada. We have the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Canadian Bill of Rights. But one is just a sucker trunk, okay? And the other is a solid, sturdy trunk. And it is considered a quasi-constitutional statute, the Canadian Bill of Rights. And the Canadian Bill of Rights doesn't need any special ceremony to use it in the moment. And it is far more robust than Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And it speaks to human rights and fundamental freedoms that the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is silent on. Therefore, you have a choice of which trunk you want to climb. If you want to climb the flimsy sucker trunk with the flimsy sucker rule branches and what, go ahead and climb that trunk. Or you can have the choice to climb the sturdy, solid trunk of the Canadian Bill of Rights, on which the foundation of statutes, regulations, and case law are properly established in law to bear the best fruit.
Yeah.
Do you guys have fun with this?
Yeah. I like it.
Okay,
How did I
awesome.
do that?
What's that?
How did I do?
Oh, really good, really good. So we're done. We were done with the contract law before the break then, from the sounds of it.
I think so. Because I mean, you know how deep I've been in the Constitution Act lately. I think I just needed, I was like a volcano ready to erupt, so I couldn't help myself.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. And Sherry is asking for the link to that, I guess, blog that you asked for, and maybe if you can't find it now, then just.
I might, give me 1 second. I might be able to find it.
Okay. I might not attach it to this workshop because it's a different subject. So Sherry, if you just want to pick it up from the chat here, that would be great.
It's I'm having stupid issues. It's something like the Governor General gets a vasectomy.
No worries for now. If you
No,
come
that's the
across it
title of
later.
it. That's the title of it.
Okay.
So I believe the title of it is the Governor General gets a vasectomy. And this guy nails it. And not only that, he went digging, and he managed to find a copy of the Order of Council, but you can only find, like, you can't find it online. It's buried.
And they're all buried.
Okay, we got 6, but there is enough money there, right?
Oh, Linda, I'm just going to mute you. There you go. Okay, so while Amanda's looking for that link, I'll just remind everybody that we're back again August 15th for part 2 of contract law. So you've already signed up for that workshop. You don't need to have any new sign up. We'll just send out the Zoom link again a little closer to it. But if you want to put that date on your calendar, then you're all good to go. Just in general, so you know, I will be for every new event, so not including the ones that are series ongoing, then there will be a new sign up, just to keep all of the links discreet, so to speak, separate from each other.
Okay.
Zoom links.
I've got the website. I don't think I've got the right link directly to the article, but I've got the website. So I'm going to
John just posted. Is that the right one there?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Yep, that's the one. You got it. And I'm going to mention he's with my brokerage.
Can you take one more question from the chat as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Gary, I did see a shocky face on you. Are you still in shock there?
No, I hit the wrong button.
Oh, okay.
But I did want to ask you about did you say the Constitution is a contract?
Well, technically it's a contract. So going back to contract law, folks, every contract, whether it's a private contract between a buyer and a seller, or between provinces and a queen, or whatever, contract creates law. So yeah, it's a contract, but it's the contract. You need to understand what the word constitution means. And I actually printed it off. Give me 1 second. Nope, I've been flipping around too many papers. Constitution Act is essentially it establishes, in this case, the nation of Canada, and it sets out the provisions and rules and procedures that all the entities listed, all the subjects of classes and entities listed within the Constitution, what they can and cannot do, typically what they can do. If it doesn't say they can do it, they can't do it. Okay, and if they expressly say they can't do it, they can't do it. But for them to do something, it has to say that they can do it. And if it doesn't say they can do it, then they can't do it. Okay, because law is positive.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, constitutions are contracts. It's a social contract. The Reopening of Ontario Act is a contract. It's a social contract. And the people who created that contract was the Legislative Assembly of Ontario under the Crown, making it legal, making the legal authority of it federal. And those representatives, okay, were working on implied authority, implied because because we gave them the authority to represent us.
I
But they are still subject to the will of the people because the people created them in their own image, making the people sovereign over the House of the Legislative Assembly. Easy peasy.
So I've heard you say that legislation is implied contract, but constitution is a contract, not implied.
No, well, I mean, it's all implied. Like
It's all implied.
Didn't I tell you that agreement of purchase and sale only represents evidence of a contract?
Mhm.
Right? It's also about the elements of a contract. So the
elements.
subject, so the people, so what in the Constitution Act, who are the ones who created the Constitution Act? Well, that's simple. It was the Crown and the provinces. It is an agreement between the Crown and the provinces. Okay? And under that agreement, we have several entities created. You have the Crown, you have and or Governor General and or Lieutenant Governor. They're all synonymous. They all represent the Crown. At the level of at the jurisdictional level of the entire country, you have the Senate. Okay. In Ontario, we have an executive council, but the executive council doesn't play the same position as the Senate because it represents, it's similar to a privy council, right? So privy council is not, it's just part of the House in this instance. So you have the Senate, you don't have a Senate in Ontario, but then you have the houses. In the federal geographical jurisdiction, you have the House of Commons, and in the provincial geographical jurisdiction of Ontario, you have the House of the Legislative Assembly. And the houses are what the people rule over, because the houses are created by the people in their own image, and they are subject to the will of the people, which creates an obligation of fiduciary responsibility, duty to the people that they represent, which means they should be putting the interest of the people they represent before the interest of the party. And if you're afraid of being fired from the party because you're putting the interest of your people first, well, then guess what? Get a new premier or get a new head of the party, because the people, the representatives, have the geographical obligation, a fiduciary duty to represent, should be the people who are the crown over the House, because it's basically supposed to be the two sovereigns.
Okay, awesome. So then thank you so much, Amanda. It's been amazing to host you here. You're not only full of knowledge, but a ball of fire too. I love it. Yeah, super, a lot of passion. You care about this subject very, very much. You care about these people. It's extremely generous. Amanda is doing these workshops by donation only. And if you would like to make a donation directly to her, I'm going to repost that link as the last thing here. It's also on the page where you signed up. Just give me a second to scroll back. I know you guys can't see who joined later. You can't see the links that have already been shared, correct?
Yeah, so Gary, I'm sure Beth is going to share this with me. I'm going to definitely upload this onto my YouTube channel. And then I probably will do additional, as I have time, I'll probably do additional breakdowns of each of the components and elements that I laid out in this summary today. I know I just dumped a whole lot of information on everybody. It's the way I seem to work best. I just love dumping information.
That's cool. And then someone just asked about the recordings. So for any events and workshops in the House of Free Will that are available to the general membership, this is the link here where you're going to find the recordings, usually about 24 hours after the workshop has happened. Might be sooner, but I give myself that much time just in case to download everything and upload again. And I also provided Amanda's PayPal. And thank you, Sherry, on behalf of Amanda for supporting her work. And then I was just going to share your YouTube channel one more time as well, so that people know if there are those that don't want to join the House of Free Will for any reason, then they will be able to catch snippets of Amanda's workshop in particular over there.
Yeah, and I am trying to break down a lot of these aspects of foundational law as much as I can. Guys, you know, if you can, like, subscribe, share my channel. The only way this is going to get out, I think, is organically through people like you and me. And all I'm trying to do is make sure that Canadians once and for all are finally educated, because we have been robbed of our education for decades. And I think it's not until we understand how our system is supposed to work that that we're going to have any changes in it.
Yeah, why wasn't this part of our in the first place, right? There's a purpose behind that too, right?
Yeah, and I kid you not, nobody taught me this. I just read it and read it and read it and then reread it and then read it some more and then digested some more, and it was just because and here's the thing, when I start reading law, I don't always read it, I don't always catch it the first time, but I guess I know enough about reading law that I know that there's something that I'm missing, so I digest it. You wouldn't believe how often I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go, oh my God, I got it, and then I'm right to my computer, and the keyboard warrior in me just comes right out. And it was funny because I was in full on channeling this morning. Beth is like, we're still on for today. I'm like, yeah, Beth, but I'm in the middle of a muse. I can't stop. I gotta focus. So.
Alrighty. Well, I am going to stop the recording, and are we done? Do you think we're done for today then, Amanda?
I think so. And I know we're actually into your next appointment. I don't want to keep you any longer, Beth.
I was actually strategic in my anticipating that you might go a little bit over, so I give myself a little buffer zone there. And yeah, okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I totally appreciate it. Keep the 15th on the books for the part 2. Also on August 23rd, Brett Fountain, who is the co-host of Rule of Law Radio, is going to be giving a workshop on bar grievances. And like Amanda's workshop, it's going to be a working workshop. People are going to come prepared, knowing in their particular region. So you don't have to sit and wonder, like, is this about my zone? Every bar association and, you know, all the codes of the judges and lawyers are different from region to region. How they want you to submit complaints is different from region to region. Some are really picky, some will accept a letter. And so there's going to be some legwork to get into that one. But if you don't know Brett Fountain, he is a total rock star like Amanda in the law world, helping a lot of people, has a very strong foundation in faith. And so, yeah, he wants to come and help us and do this other workshop. The landing page is ready, so I'll be sending that out fairly soon for people to sign up as well. if you have any friends that would like to be part of these events, then please share with them the link to apply to the House of Free Will first. Being in the private domain, that's my obligation as a private domain status organization to make sure that everybody's applying, that it's really right for them, it's right for us, and that they're going to be part of the membership in a way that is, like-minded and like-hearted. So I think that's all for now. And I sending you guys a lot of love and appreciation for being part of this right now in the ground floor.
And guys, if you're feeling a little anxious right now, that's just the cognitive dissonance. You'll get over it.
Exactly. Yeah, it does start to sink in. I noticed that when I go and read posts on the groups, I'm actually taking it all in instead of having this like wall of confusion come up. So it does start to sink in.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Thank you again, Amanda, and we shall see you again at
Sorry
the
to
next
completely
one.
go off topic, but I didn't
No.
really, because we're still talking contract, right?
Yeah, exactly. August 16th, by the way, is the first fellowship meeting for the House of Free Will. So that's an opportunity to come in and we'll get to know each other compared to the workshops that are a little bit hit the ground running. We'll have more chance to actually connect.
All right.
All right, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.